Last but not least, Father.
Yes,
Please
I'm the Reverend Alexander Sharp, Executive Director of Clergy for a New Drug Policy. I'm ordained in the United Church of Christ, graduate of the University of Chicago Divinity School, and since people are mentioning credentials, a graduate many years ago of the Woodrow Wilson School of Public Policy at Princeton. Clergy for a New Drug Policy reaches out to clergy nationally to end the war on drugs and seek a health, not punishment response to drug policy. Because we were based in Illinois, and I've been doing faith-based education and advocacy work for over 20 years, a substantial number of clergy and lay leaders in Illinois are aware of our work. It might seem unusual for clergy to be advocating marijuana legalization, and I'm not advocating for marijuana use, although I don't think it's wrong, any more than using alcohol, a far more dangerous drug, is wrong. Many clergy support marijuana legalization because of our sense of how to influence and even change behaviors, especially of our youth. What the war on drugs has taught us over the past 45 years is that prohibition does not work. Why? Prohibition refuses to accept reality. Drugs are a reality in our society. Cigarettes, alcohol, and potentially addictive behaviors like gambling are with us. The issue, therefore, becomes not how to prevent, not use, but abuse. And I wish somebody would make this point to U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions when he appears to say that all drug use is bad. Instead of prohibition, we need to focus on preventing abuse through regulation and education. Cigarettes are legal, but smoking has gone down by 50% in the last 25 years. Alcohol is legal, but we have made progress here as well. Marijuana is illegal, and use has not gone down, although I think the Sampson data that was pushed around a little bit here already shows that use is at least constant, if not going down, for youth in Colorado. What's wrong with this picture, illegal versus legal, is that with marijuana, we have persisted in mindless prohibition. I stress to my clergy colleagues that legalization is the wrong word. We seek the regulation of marijuana. That means that marijuana now obtained in the illicit market will be clearly labeled and packaged. People will know what and how much they're using. That is far from the case with back alley and schoolyard purchases. I've used these policy arguments with clergy across the country, and they get it. But beyond these policy-wonk arguments, at the end of the day, we must educate each other, especially our young people. We must communicate with them in a way that makes sense to them. They need to trust us. And I don't see how that's possible when we equate marijuana and prohibition. Our youth didn't believe us when we preached Just Say No in the 1980s. When it comes to marijuana, they do not believe us now. The DARE programs where a law enforcement officer stands in front of a classroom and says, "This is your brain on drugs," didn't work when they were first tried. These programs have been adjusted since the 1980s, but they are still not effective. I've attended many conferences where medical experts have described in elaborate detail how marijuana, if heavily used, can be harmful to youth and young and still developing brains. It can affect motivation. I believe all these points. Our kids should hear and take to heart every one of them. The problem is that it is very hard to communicate with them in the context of a policy, namely prohibition, rooted in abstinence. Further, the very concept of harm reduction, which has become so important in dealing with all drugs, is impossible if abstinence is the only response to drug use. To deny the goal of harm reduction is immoral. The best in our faith traditions tells us that persuasion with compassion, mercy, and forgiveness, rather than punishment in the form of jail and incarceration, are the best paths to changing hearts and minds. All of this gives us a response to one final question, rarely stated, but really in people's minds. We've got alcohol and cigarettes, but why marijuana? Do we really need another legal drug? My response, if we really believe that regulation and education are the best way to shape individual moral behavior, we should legalize marijuana, even if alcohol and cigarettes could never happen. Marijuana legalization stands on its own merits. And that's why I urge your support for Senate Bill 360.
Thank you very much, Reverend.